Hello everyone, Arun Venugopal of WNYC here. It's my pleasure to introduce the Center for Traditional Music and Dances series, Beat of the Boroughs, NYC Online. This online series features over 50 of New York's leading traditional instrumentalists, dancers, singers, poets, and more. From Mongolia to Haiti, Colombia to the Gambia, among many others, they remind us how the strength of our country lies in its embrace of diversity and immigration. We want to celebrate these remarkable members of the New York community in these challenging times. So please enjoy these 50 programs, share them with your friends, and spread the word. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to Beat of the Boroughs, NYC Online. We are going to get started with a set of two songs, traditional Peruvian Andean songs by Inka Raiku. The first is a set of huaynos, ojos azules and poco a poco, followed by a carnaval from the region in Peru, Apurímac, which is called Carnaval de Supaycu and will be sung in Quechua. For the purpose of this program, Inka Raiku is going to be focusing on traditional Peruvian Andean music or Andean music from ethnic groups and regions that are part of modern-day Peru. And that will be followed by a discussion with Andres. And then after that, we will have some Ecuadorian repertoire by Andres, Ivan, and Joey, followed by a conversation with Ivan about that repertoire. And that is how we will keep our conversation going, God willing. So without further ado, here is Inka Raiku live from Loft 393 with some music for you all. Enjoy.
Vamos, compañeros. Sus compadres, vamos a Apurímac. gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's give Inka Raiku a round of virtual applause here. Good news is that I've heard from our listeners and our viewers that the live stream on Facebook and YouTube is working very well. And we are hearing and seeing Inka Raiku and not just my face. So that alone is a great triumph. And I am happy to hear that. So we're going to transition here, as I said, and have a live discussion that I'm going to moderate here with my friend and accomplice and colleague, Andres Jimenez, about the music that you just heard, and take a little bit more of a deep dive into the story that is Inka Raiku and his lineage, musical history, and the scene, and discuss a little bit what made those two songs specific to the Andean regions that are known as modern-day Peru. Let's start off, and I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about the two songs that we just heard. What are the genres that they come from? What are the regions of the Peruvian Andes that they're from? And a little bit of what the songs are about. What are the stories, the lyrics saying?
Oh, sure. Okay, so the first medley is a medley of two huaynos or huaynos, ojos azules, blue eyes, and poco a poco, little by little. These are two melodies, two songs that are very, very popular in the overall general Andean genre. I think any Andean musician in the world, if you drop these names of these songs, they're gonna like, oh yeah, I know how to play that. But the actual origins, the first melody, Ojos Azules, based on my research, it's not really clear of the origin. All I can say is that it looks like it's shared between Peru and Bolivia. That's fine. I've heard both versions, and I've come to appreciate both versions and studied them both. And it's good, since we're talking about this, we're having this conversation about regionalism, but particularly now between Peru and Ecuador, but also there's also regionalism within Peru itself, within Ecuador itself, within Bolivia itself, and of course between the countries. It gets more different, I guess. But the second melody is Poco a Poco, and that also, according to what I've studied, looks like it's a combined Peruvian, Bolivian, and Argentinian origin. That particular, and it may have had a different rhythm at some point called caporales or saya, but we're interpreting it today for everyone as a wine. The stories behind it.
Or not so much the story behind it, Manu, as much as what the lyrics were saying for people who aren't Spanish speakers.
Oh, okay. Well, so if you literally translate the lyrics, Ojos Azules, blue eyes, don't cry, you'll cry when I leave. It's very romantic, but they have to be careful, right? We were just having a conversation earlier today. I think in all cultures, in all folklore, and all kinds of folk music, you can take things literally, right? But in a lot of folk music, there's also double meanings, or there's a lot of poetic meaning, and it's not necessarily, the literal translation. Poco a poco, similarly, little by little, you have loved me. You have loved me, you have wanted me. Never say no. Never say no. It's very romantic, like I said, but who knows what the author, whoever they were, the author is whoever they were, what they were trying to say. Just like in any type of song, form, or genre, there's always a lot of poesy, a lot of room to interpret things, and it's particularly also to the person, doing the listening as well. it can be very subjective.
But that's also like a bit of the social power of a folk song, no? That it's, it could have a relatively simple message, right? Both are upbeat dance tunes as winos, both have sort of a romantic, but also, like always a little push-pull, kind of that, the pain of loving type of, message. But at the same time, these songs, they're relatively simple. So whoever's interpreting them or singing them can also infuse their own feeling and their own interpretation in the performance, right? There are different means of interpretation of the same songs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The artist himself or herself, or whomever they are, it takes a personal significance, and then it could take a whole other meaning, depending on the interpreter of the song, and like you said, it could have like a duality. Like some songs could actually have very very sad subject matter in the lyrics, but it's dance music and people are having a party and they're dancing. But it's like you could say like the blues, it can be both uplifting, but maybe have a sad, melancholy aspect to it. But I think that's also common in folklore from all over the world.
Mm-hmm. And what about the second song that we heard, the Carnaval?
Okay, so the difference between the first number and the second one is the first number is much more contemporary, even though we're moving on, maybe almost 100 years when they were composed on paper anyway. But the other one is the second one, Carnaval de Supaico, is much more indigenous form, indigenous genre, and we say the word carnaval, but that's a European term actually that was brought by the Europeans. But the truth is there was a syncretism in the Andes. In case you don't know, it means they took, especially when it came to religion, they took religious aspects from Christianity and tried to suppress, the indigenous religions and spirituality. But what ended up actually happening was a combination of the two. And so Carnival has something to do with that syncretism, because Carnival is normally happened during harvest time, and was an opportunity for young men and young women to meet and form couples. So the European culture, they took their Carnival and I guess overlapped it with the indigenous, what we call the harvest, or this type of genre is called kachwa. So every village or every community has their own kachwas, or songs for harvest, or songs for farming, or a wedding song, even particular to the type of crop. It could be a harvest of the potato, and there's a song for that. But anyway, this particular Carnaval is from a particular place called Supaico, which is a place in Apurimac, Peru. And it's the lyrical content is in Quechua, and it's very also very romantic. It's a kind of a playful. Actually, should be sung by both men and women. It's kind of a playful dialogue between men and women, kind of teasing, that sort of thing.
Great. So that's a little overview of the two songs which Inka Raiku chose to perform. And let's get a little bit more in depth into the different languages that we're hearing. So you mentioned that the Supaico is sung in Quechua, and that obviously the first two, the huaynos, were sung in Spanish.
Yes.
And that's very representative of an Andean reality, right? The kind of mix in music where the lyrical content will be in both, right? Spanish language and also Quechua, sometimes a mix of the two. And, that's also how people interact depending on, in which region. If it's a very Quechua-speaking region where people, are barely speaking Spanish, or then in certain towns or more urban areas where there's a mix, the same way Spanish and English might be mixed in New York City, right? And people are kind of mixing, going back and forth. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about what it's like for yourself, and also, as representative of the Inkarayku experience, performing in New York City in a United States context, where you're in the diaspora, Some folks are actually immigrants at one point in their life to New York from Peru, others like yourself, born and raised in New York, and still others like myself, at one point, and other members of the group are not even from a Peruvian or Latin American background, but are sort of adopted members of the Inka Raiku family. I'm wondering, Inka Raiku adds English to the mix, right? We're having this conversation in English. A lot of the presenting that we do is in English, and the music will be in Spanish or in Quechua. And I'm wondering if you can reflect a little bit on, what that's like for you and what you're trying to do with that, for the group.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. I am born and raised in New York City, from Brooklyn originally. Now I live in Queens, the most diverse place in the world. And I think it's a blessing to be in New York City, and sometimes it could be a curse, I guess, depending on your point of view about things. But for me and musically, it's been a blessing because you meet people who don't necessarily share, the same ancestry or, same lineage as you do, biologically, geographically, however you want to put it. But what draws people, I think, universally to music from the end is, whether they realize it or not, is a strong attraction to the melody, the structures and the notes and the flutes, and I think that's universal. So regardless of language, people are attracted to it. Then, of course, once they're attracted and you start meeting people, of course, New York is the place to meet people from all over the world, right? Especially Queens. And so in that way, I said I'm blessed because I had the opportunity not just to work with, people necessarily from Peru or Bolivia and Ecuador, which I call the big three, but people, who are not from the Andes or have families, who are descended from people from Andean lineage. And you can still share, and you can still teach, and I consider myself, to be honest with you, an American. Someone born in the United States. My first language was not even Spanish. My first language was English, and then gradually I learned some Spanish, and now actually I'm studying Quechua. I can speak very, very basic Quechua. I have a okay vocabulary, and yeah, this is. Even with the pandemic, like I said, it's just amazing because now, even though we weren't planning on it, now we're sharing our message, with everyone all over the world who decides to tune in and watch these things, on the internet. It's amazing. I feel truly blessed to be able to do what I'm doing today. It's a hobby, a passion. Like I said, it's not I'm not a professional musician. This is just something I do when I'm, in my spare time, and we love it.
Well, you're definitely multi-talented for someone who doesn't call himself a professional. I will say that.
Too kind.
But in the sense of today's workshop, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about, we just heard two songs representative, two traditions from Peru. But are there certain generalizations that you can make about Andean music, traditional Andean music from the region that is modern-day Peru, from the ethnic groups that make Peru home? Is that even possible? Are there certain, performance aesthetics, instrumentation, types of melodies that when you hear, that's a Peruvian Andean melody versus Ecuadorian?
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, even just within Peru, there's a lot of things, which differentiate Peruvian music, but if we differentiate between Peru
or just in general.
Oh, okay.
You can decide how you want to answer that. Yeah.
Oh, it depends, because one thing is instrumentation, another thing is language, another thing is style. It can get very subjective, but what it boils down to, is rhythms. Even if you change the instrumentation and you change the language, the structure of the music itself will have a certain rhythm and have a certain structure to the melody, and you can identify it. Oh, okay, that's from this part, that's from this part, based on the structures. But this takes it takes a lot of years. I remember when I first started playing Andean music, honestly, I didn't know if what I was listening was from Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador. For me, it was all the same. I just loved hearing the sounds of the flutes. So, 35 years later, I think my ear is trained enough to be able to differentiate, but I wouldn't say it's, something that it's easy to do. And I'm still learning, of course. I'm still learning. And especially if you don't have a guide, someone that, here's the manual, here's how you tell, what the difference is between countries or regions of one particular country. Something I guess you just have to learn by listening to so many different, versions. Even the same version of one song played by different people could be very, very significant. And you just have to put in the hours, I guess. And I guess in that way, I've been a little obsessive, compulsive about listening to this music as much as I can in my spare time. So.
But for people, so that is true, obviously, and that's a part of your superpower and your talent. But for people who don't do that or aren't, performers of Andean music, they're just wanting to learn through the point of this workshop. I know, for example, something you've told me in, our work together, you'll hear someone play and you'll say, oh, he's playing in a Peruvian style, or he's playing in an Ecuadorian style. What does that mean?
Right, okay. So like I said, it comes down to rhythms and how you phrase notes, and you can take the same melody, for example, and say like a huayno melody, and then, I guess it's not so easy, but you could take it, and if you're familiar with both genres, right, I could take a melody from one and then play it as a San Juanito melody and rhythm from Ecuador, but it's the same melody, right, same notes, right? But the rhythm and how you phrase the notes becomes different, and that's the key. That's the key. And then, like I said, once you add language and instrumentation, those are other colors, but it's really about the notes and the rhythm and how you arrange things. But the instrumentation could also be a dead giveaway, because certain instruments, they used to be primarily played only in one country versus another country, but now they're universal, like I said, all over the world. People play all these instruments, so it's really about how you play. Anyone can grab a charango, right? It's an Andean instrument, but they can play music from, whatever. They could have created it. It's no longer Andean music just because you're playing it with an Andean instrument. You see what I'm saying? I hope.
No, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. So, for example, if we're talking about the Andes as a geographic region, there are certain songs or certain melodies that you'll find all over the Andes, but they might be performed according to different rhythms, phrasing, different instrumentation, even different lyrics, depending on which region you're in.
Yeah, and each artist also, you could have, even within the same country, 5 different artists from Peru, for example, interpreting one melody. There's going to be similarities, obviously, but there's going to be differences that could be very pronounced, and it's very subjective. It's based on, the individualism, I guess, of the artist or the group, and that also happens. It's very typical. It could also be because due to marketing. People, depending on people's real motivation about playing music, I guess they're gonna do whatever. Oh, let's do we're in the 70s. Let's do a disco version of this popular wine, or that'll sell. You know what I'm saying? That probably has been done, right? But like I said, it depends on the artist. No two people are gonna play the same melody exactly the same way, and that's beautiful too. Everything is gonna be unique. There's no concrete set of rules. You must play it a certain way.
But there are styles that you or others identify, specifically as a Peruvian performer, correct?
Of course.
Yeah.
Every region has specific styles, let's be frank. They used to. Nowadays, it is getting harder for me to tell, because there is a trend now to maybe overly digitize music and maybe simplifying things by using primarily keyboards, synthesizers, electronic percussion. And I've heard it's not just in Peru, I've heard this, in other countries as well. So once you start doing that, actually, then it starts taking away what makes things different. The instrumentation becomes exactly the same, you know what I'm saying? What are you left with? Okay, becomes the singer, I guess. So then you're left with, okay, depending on how they sing and how they phrase things vocally, maybe you can make a distinction. But when you leave it up to computers, it gets a little more difficult.
But
That's
you
my
have two.
observation.
You have two instruments there on the table, correct? That you
Yes.
identified as, you know, typical of the Peruvian repertoire. Can you tell us about them?
Oh, yes, please. Oh, sure. Forgot I had them here. So this is a quena made by Guillermo Guerrero, who lives now in Astoria, Queens. He was one of the founders of Tawantinsuyo, a great musician, and he taught me many things. And I'm glad I have his beautiful quena that he made. And this was, I think it was also played all over the Andes. I think they have found quenas all over the, you know, artifacts, you know, that are very, very old. And I think the instrument itself is the same everywhere you go. It's just how you play it and what melodies you use that maybe make a distinction, you know. Oh, that's a Peruvian, necessarily the instrument is from Peru, but oh, that melody interpreted through that flute, that's a Peruvian style, that's a Peruvian melody versus a Bolivian melody, which can sound very similar. So, but now it's universal. I saw videos on YouTube recently, and I saw actually some Japanese musicians, and they're experts at these instruments. I was amazed. They're experts at the charango, the quena, the zampoña, and it's amazing, you know. And obviously that's not their culture, but I guess, like I said, they have a love for it. They have a strong attraction to it. And I think some of these guys are professionals. That is like their full-time job is playing Andean music. And I have to say, if I didn't see them on the screen and I just heard them play, I wouldn't know, to be honest, if they were Japanese or not Japanese, or Andean or not Andean, because they played so well. So this is a bamboo type of quena. Many quenas, also, depending on the taste of the musician, can be made out of wood. I've seen made out of metal, plastic PVC. The next instrument over here, well, this is also special because it's one of the stringed instruments that are native to the Andes, called the charango. So the origin of the charango also is not so clear, but it looks like it originated in Bolivia and Peru. And this particular charango is from Bolivia. It's beautiful. You can see it's like a work of art, not just an instrument. And what I can say about Peruvian style charango versus Bolivian style charango playing, at least from the old days, I don't know about anymore, but there used to be a specific type of finger picking that Peruvians would do, which made it different from Bolivian. Otherwise, it's not that different, where they would do a lot of this tremolo playing. So that particular type of strumming, that's particular to southern Peru, I could say that. But everything else, you know, strumming and other types of picking, I would say, yeah, it's universal now to everyone. And the sound itself of the instrument is very sweet and it's very attractive to the ear. I think anyone in the world would say, wow, it just sounds like a very sweet instrument to play.
We do have to keep moving in terms of time, but I'm wondering if you could talk about your decision with the founding of Inkarayku to have a group that played music from Peru, Ecuador, and Bolivia versus specializing in a very particular region or country.
Sure. Well, when you talk about the Andes, it's not just Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador, obviously. And then even when you speak of the Inca Empire, it wasn't just Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador. But based on my own experiences and my involvement in this genre, the people I played with have been primarily from Peru, Bolivia, and Ecuador. And so I became much more interested in learning the music primarily, the Andean music primarily from these countries. I didn't really choose to exclude anyone else. I have heard Andean music from Argentina, Chile, even Colombia, for example. But you can't. Personally, I decided, well, it's too much work to try and branch out and learn forms from the other countries. Let me just try and be good, at least at these three. And that's just a personal choice I made. Of course, Peru, because that's my lineage, and then Bolivia, because I met my wife and I was involved with Bolivian groups, and now I'm making a much more of a specific effort to learn more about Ecuadorian music, actually.
Awesome. All right, so thank you so much for sitting down with me here, Andres, to unpack the Peruvian aesthetic to this music and some of the background for yourself and Inka Raiku. We're going to get going at this time with our next two songs and the final section of the workshop, which is the Ecuadorian material from yourself, Joey, and Ivan. And you're going to be hearing La Voz del Chagra, Jose Maria, and also Naupa Yacta.
Consentimiento, compadrito. Lunita más, un San Juanito, que dice nada más así.
But Ivan, I'm going to turn all the same questions back to you from this Ecuadorian perspective. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the two songs we just heard. What genres do they come from? And what are they about?
Okay, sure. Well, the first song we played is a melody that is from the mestizo people. It's not like a very traditional melody, but it's called La Vuelta del Chagra. The rhythm is called Capishka, which comes from the north of Ecuador, from Quito and like Ibarra and all those places. And El Chagra is a type of men that live in the regions where where they take care of the cows, and they bring the herds back to the mountains, and to feed them and stuff. you know, they are called the chagras. So La Vuelta del Chagra means like when they're coming back home, you know, from doing their work basically. So yeah, that's the first song that that talks about. It has the lyrics. We didn't do the lyrics today, but if you hear the lyrics, that's what's about. That's what's the chagra.
And then the second, which was then Nyapa Yakta.
Ñaupayacta. It's also a Quechua title that they gave to this song, which means in Spanish, nuestra casa, our home, our, I could say our homeland kind of thing. That's what it means, Ñaupayacta. It's a San Juanito rhythm. And it's also from the north of Ecuador. Same regions like Imbabura, Otavalo. It's a very famous song. I know that song for so many years, and it's one of the songs that we would never stop playing, I guess, and we will still enjoy, and people will still dance when they hear it, because it has this power that this group put into it. So, and in San Juanito, the rhythm itself is it's a very popular rhythm in Ecuador, one of the most known rhythm, I guess, in outside of the country. So yeah, that's the second song. What I can say about that second song.
Yeah. And so, what about these songs is particularly indicative of being, from the Ecuadorian region to you? Or if someone asked you to generalize about the Ecuadorian Andes, what are some of the styles and sounds and instrumentation that you think make that particularly iconic and known?
Well, Ecuador has so many rhythms, and but like I said, I think San Juanito is one of the most popular rhythms in Ecuador. Like, everybody knows Ecuador because of the San Juanitos. But other than that, there's lots of different rhythms in Ecuador. Some of them I don't even know. Like, people like the Jibaros, or the people from the deep in the Amazon. They have their own rhythms. So, but I think San Juanito is the one that would people would say that's Ecuadorian rhythm.
Yeah, I noticed that's always very popular when Inka Raiku plays a San Juanito.
Yeah.
If there's an Ecuadorian community, people are very excited with that genre. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rhythm very close to a rhythm in Bolivia. That's tobas. They are very similar, and sound very similar, but the dance is a little bit different. When you see it, you will see the difference. But yeah, it's very close to that rhythm in Bolivia.
And you have some instruments there that I know are also typical of the Ecuadorian Andes. Can you talk about them?
Sure. Well, the one that's very typical, very Ecuadorian, I would say, is the rondador, which is this one here, which is made out of bamboo now. This one is made out of bamboo. The ones that are made in Ecuador, they are made of, I don't know the name of it, to be honest, but we call it carrizo. It looks like bamboo, but it's a little bit thicker, and to play it is a little bit harder. So that's why they start making out of bamboo, because it's easier to play. The first rondadors that were made out of the feathers of condor. So before they discovered they can make out of the carrizo or the bamboo. But I have seen one a friend of mine has one of those rondadores made out of the feathers of a condor. So, but yeah, this is one of the very traditional instruments from Ecuador. You know, you play it in pairs. You know, and then as you combine and you figure out what the notes or whatever the song you want to play, and then, you know, it makes the sound. And so, you know, it's a melody, very rich melody, and yeah, for the feasts, for the happy songs, for the happy rhythms, you play it, and you know, it's people, I guess, dance or, you know, enjoy more, yeah, the sound of it. And then we have the flute. Oops, sorry, that it's not only Ecuadorian. I mean, Bolivia has it, Peru has it, but if I would say Ecuador don't play the quena, the flute that we play like this. Ecuador play this type of flute, which is almost the same. So, yeah, these are the ones that I can show you now that I have it with me. There are other ones that are, you know, like the ocarina, sweet potato, I think they're called. And pingullo also, it's a flute that you also play like this, but it has only 3 holes, and you can play any song with it. So I don't have them with me.
That's okay. This is just a taste for today.
Yes, you know? Yes. And, yeah, what we also use is this funny instrument. You know, you can sometimes tell, you know, like the sound of it's like a river, you know, like water stream. So sometimes people use for that, and then if you're playing like a San Juanito, you know, it just adds up a little more into the music. And what is this made out of? You're not gonna believe.
That's the question of the year. Yeah, people are always surprised what that's made out of.
I mean, if you could see just one of these, this is a hoof of a goat. It's not like some people think it's like seeds or stuff like that, but no, this is an actual hoof of a goat. See? So imagine how many goats had to die because of this instrument. All right? So it's like, you know, we had to make music somehow. So, and put them together, it's a beautiful song. That's all I have for today.
No, you're good. I would say on that sombering thought, we'll change gears just a little bit. And so for the song Ñaupa Yacta, you talked a little bit about how that is Quechua, right? It means for, you know, our village, our homeland in Quechua. Do you speak Quechua yourself?
No, unfortunately, okay. I don't.
Just a little knowledge here and there of some terms.
Yeah, we just, you know, during the songs, we sometimes we say something like a word of encouragement to the partners, and like traditional words that, you know, that we hear from the Quechua speaking groups, you know, and we try to imitate that, you know, and but no, I don't.
Part of the culture.
I don't speak
part of the
Quechua.
Culture.
Yeah. No. My parents, I remember when I was a kid, they used to speak Quechua, but you know, we were not obliged to speak Quechua at home anymore.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wish I could. To be honest,
there's still time, you know. You're young.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a lot of great teachers of Quechua and Quechua, even in the United States now. A lot of programs, universities, community programs.
Yeah.
So There's still time. I'll post some stuff in the comments about that. I know some of our viewers lead those initiatives. But I think it's interesting to think about, we're talking about regionalisms in the music, and there's also regionalisms in the dialect, right? Quichua, Quechua, these are part of the big kind of Quechua language family, but the accent and the exact words and the style of speech, varies obviously in different parts of the Andean region that do speak, one of the languages that are part of the Quechua language family. Yep. So, it's an interesting thing to kind of keep in mind. My last question. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, go.
We just had a conversation with Andres before everything started about how things change. Talking about just one word, the chagra. Going back to the chagra, they would say in Peru they would say chakra, right? And I was like, no, to me, chakra is something else, right? So going back to history and stuff, it comes down to, it was the same word, but, as the time goes by, things change. And also being in a different country, it's even more, changes even more. So yeah, chakra comes from the word chakra, which is known in Peru also. And at the end, it meant the same thing, right? Somehow, it came down to the same thing. So, it changes a lot. Like Peru is Quechua, Ecuador is Quichua, because Quichua in Quichua language they don't have the letter E, so so it's Quichua. And then region to region, yes, it also changes. From the north to the south, there are words that sound different. So they can understand if they had to speak to each other. They understand each other, but there are words that I know they say it sounds different. Yeah, it changes.
Just like in any language, right? Even in the United States, there are parts of the country where, especially if English isn't your native language, it's very hard to understand. It sounds so different, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. Just imagine Ecuador having so many dialects, not only two,
And so my last question for you, Yvonne, it's kind of in the same vein, but it's branching off a little. So we're talking about, we talked about with Andres as well, how there might be a melody that is interpreted a little bit differently in a different region of the Andes or in a different country, so to speak, modern day country. And also sometimes songs have more than one name or they're referred to slightly differently in different places. So when I was asking about the songs you would do for today's workshop, Andres said, well, we're going to do La Vuelta del Chagra, but Ivan, he calls it Jose Maria sometimes, and I don't know why that is. And he said, why don't you ask him? And I'm curious, first of all, why do you think that song has two names? Is that a common thing? I think it is a common thing with, folk music, certainly with music. But where do you think these different names come from?
Well, like I said at the beginning, it's from the north of Ecuador. The name, sometimes they say Jose Maria. It's a common name, I would say, in our country. Like I have had
in a lot of countries. Yeah,
I've had situations where I go to a new job, let's say, and there's American people working there, and they automatically think my name is Manuel. So, like, why is that? Because every Ecuadorian is Manuel. Like, no, I'm not Manuel. So Jose Maria, I guess it's another typical
common name.
Common name, yeah. And why did I pick that song? I guess I wanted to play a rhythm that is not too common, it's a little difficult, but people are forgetting about those rhythms. San Juanito is too common. San Juanito I wanted to play because I want everyone to know that, we are from Ecuador. And the other one I wanted to play because because it's been forgotten. So
It's a little more unknown.
yeah, yeah. So,
But I guess my question, Ivan, is who is Jose Maria in this song? Why is it sometimes referred to as Jose Maria? Is that the main character in the song?
no, not really. Like I said,
Oh.
they just they probably had a friend, or they probably or they were probably inspired on a man that was called Jose Maria, that would do because, like I said, it has lyrics. Perhaps we would understand better when we hear the lyrics.
I see. Yeah, yeah. I looked up the lyrics. I'm a nerd like that, so I wanted to see.
Yeah, so maybe that would explain, the whole, maybe that will answer the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ivan, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. And thank you so much also to Andres and to Inka Raiku and also to Joey Suscal for joining on the drums. I think it was a great workshop. And in terms of, going from here, we are going to edit this video a little bit afterwards, take out some of the technical snafus. We'll put it up on YouTube with the Center for Traditional Music and Dance, who made this program possible,
Right.
via Beat of the Boroughs, NYC Online. And if you're interested to learn more about Inka Raiku and the work of that group, you can go to the website, which is inkarayku.com, or follow us on social media at Inka Raiku. And Ivan, I'm just curious, I know that you play with a group with your family, you play in a variety of groups. Is there any information you want to share about your own music or ways to look up the work of your group? I know you do some streams, things like that for the community.
Well, yeah, I would like to share a little bit of my background on the music side. Playing this kind of music since I was maybe 9 years old. I started with the bombo. I remember the drum was taller than me, so it was attractive to the people. It was funny. And then today I play with my brother, other friends, Joy, that was here today with us. I'm just getting to know him. He is the son of a friend that we used to play together like 20 years ago. So at the moment I play with Reencuentro Andino, and then here with Inkarayku, temporarily. God knows what's going to happen next. and yeah, I have played with other groups as well. And yeah, music has taken me many different places, and I have met so many people through the music, because of the music. Beautiful experiences, and yeah, so many stages. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not a professional musician, but I do enjoy what I do. Yeah.
So is there any way to find your band online? Where should people go to see some of the stuff that you're doing?
The one I'm
Facebook?
playing on right now, we do have just a Facebook page for now. It's called Reencuentro Andino. You can find us there, put some videos there, or my personal Facebook, El Tío. I have uploaded some videos there. And yeah, we're starting. We have, it's a new project, so hopefully we get to do something bigger.
Okay, wonderful.
All right.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me here. Thank you.
No, thank you. So we're gonna wrap up now. Thanks once again to all the wonderful artists and to the group of Inka Raiku who made this possible. Thank you to the Center for Traditional Music and Dance, and may everyone have a lovely evening. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.